Chapter 30, in which the Cat Queen vows to help. "It's even all over the papers, Queen," Ryotaro said, waving the issue of the Godot Dimes around in the bathroom. "The disappearance of the Maybell. It's all over the papers." The Cat Queen turns to look at him, while soaking her body in a bath full of bubbles, and reaches out a hand. As if on command, he hands her the paper. "It's the girl you should notice on the picture," he said. She sat up and gazed into the headline. "Steam Trawler Maybell goes missing. Locals concerned," it said. Underneath was a photo of the Maybell crew taken by employee Sid Farrell. Among the crew was a girl with pink hair. She lets out a long, sustained purr as she slightly sinks a bit. "A total shame that we only saw the girl in her cap, her shirt, and her pants," he said. "She sure as fleas didn't fool me that easily," she said. "I know. Pretty soon, so will the rest." "Yes," he said. "I've talked to Kitty." "Have you?" she cooed. "Yes." While I was on the roof of the hotel, I can see a vision of her on board the trawler. I saw her invade the forecastle, paying respect for the dead. I told her about what the yokai is like, as well as chastising the crew for their foolishness, whose reckless action caused half of the men to drown. I told her that seeing the stormfish is considered the beginning. Then I speak no more, and let her figure it out by herself. She laughed sickly. "Indeed it is. Now, about the headlines in the picture. They're employees, whoever they are. Let me tell you, darling, I can't help but give notice to what the public wants to know, wants to hear." He nodded, taking back the paper from her. "And the search party?" he asked. "What about it? If I know better, I'm certain the search party has been taken care of by now. Make it look like an accident. All to have the girl take them home herself. Of course, that depends if she does come back with a ship in 3 days. I hear her make a vow herself." She slowly nodded. "And what about the seamen's loved ones?" he asked. "They're sure to suffer for 4 days. They even thought that they were dead, lost at sea, succumbed to the waves of the unknown." She raised her head up, thinking. Then, "Too bad I have no interest to show remorse for anyone, especially those who lost their husbands. Now they'll be forced to rely on only one force. The Princess Kitty. The Princess Kitty. What do I care about the families who have lost their husbands? The Maybell crew have themselves to blame when they happen to capture a stormfish as small as 4 meters. You know what stormfish are like, demanding man's respect and vengeful against those who captured their offspring. A petty mistake that can cost them their lives." "I'm pretty sure you're hungry by now." "Ravenous, darling," she rumbled. "I'll have Bunta here. Of course, that depends if he still has his job in the Valerian. He better not lose this one." He leaves the bathroom and orders room service, leaving her to get out of the tub and dry herself, causing her fur to puff up in the process. Annoyed, she covers her body with a white bathrobe. Then she stood by the mirror under the basin, admiring her reflection. "Better hurry back in 3 days, little kitty," she said. "Don't make me fetch you myself." Turning off the light, she heads out of the bathroom and flung herself onto the bed. "Ah!" She happens to land onto the sleeping engineer. "Do you bloody mind?" he roared. "I'm sorry," she said, sounding tired. "I didn't see you there." He struggles to breathe, trying to push her off, but her body seemed to be too heavy. He could barely speak, though he managed to say, "Oh, boss, Every, can't breathe." "You know better not to poke fun at my weight," she sneered. "I'll have you know that I weigh less than the other Abyssinian cats out there." "Anyone but him, apparently," Ryotaro said, sitting next to the radio. "Not to mention that you're statuesque." She chuckles and slowly gets up, allowing the engineer to breathe. "I can tell that you're doing that on purpose," he barked through gritted teeth. "How nice," she said. "Surely you want something to eat too." "Of course I do, boss. But that doesn't change." "What could I say, darling? It's one of the things I'm good at. Pushing your buttons, making you frustrated. I'm sure you don't mind being an acceptable target." He appeared about to say something, but remained silent. "Yes?" she asked. "Nothing, boss," the engineer muttered. She sauntered up to him, swaying her hips seductively before bending forward to meet his face. "That's right," she cooed huskily. "Because you know for a fact that things are going to be very different from this point on, with us supporting that girl, aren't they?" "That depends," he muttered. "Don't be dense, darling. It won't get you anywhere. Nothing justifies on what this girl has done. Do you think I should appreciate your obstinacy?" "Obstinacy?" he snapped. "We're better off fed by everyone to begin with." "Darling, the problem with you recently is that you keep thinking that the world is not ready for someone like us." "I don't think, boss. I know. The world ain't gonna tolerate our existence. It's no wonder people decide to grow up, because they have learned that we are not real to them. And you know that. No wonder you don't trust all mankind." Ryotaro rose up and grabbed the engineer by the arm tightly, sneering. "Shall I get him out of your sight?" "You give him time to learn," she said. "We deserve to exist as much as she does. She is the one." "And by the one, you've meant the one who brought us to existence." She had to read my book and have the knowledge, yet she barely knows the rest. "You said it yourself to Kitty on board that ship. It is only the beginning." Bunta quickly came into the room, pushing a trolley cart. "Okay, I'm here," he announced, with something fresh to start the day. With her eyes widening, she turned and said, "I know what, Bunta. You really shouldn't have." She opens up the cloche, revealing a brown mouse inside, looking up at her. Before it can do anything, she protrudes one black claw on her forefinger before digging it into the mouse's body. The mouse immediately squeals in agony as it goes into convulsions before going into paralysis. "Oh, yes," she said. "All that, and ratatouille, too." She picks up the mouse by the tail while it squeaks in protest. She opened her wide mouth and lowers the mouse inside before closing her mouth. With a sudden jerk, the tail immediately gets torn off before chewing the rest of the animal inside. The painful squeals instantly stop as the body gets torn apart with her fangs piece by piece, accompanied with the crunching and snapping of bones, before she finally gulps them down her throat and into her stomach. Clearly it's too much for the engineer, as he rushes into the bathroom and vomits into the toilet. "Hey!" Bunta called out. "Aren't you going to eat too, when you feel better?" "Shut up!" the engineer screamed. "I changed me bloody mind!" "That's not very nice," Bunta frowned. "I just found it scampering around the pantry." He hurried off down the blue-carpeted corridor. Then Gonta immediately burst into the room with a wide grin, followed by Mistress Kakyu. "We did it!" he exclaimed. "We actually did it!" "Did you, darling?" purred the Cat Queen, baring her fangs, which were covered in blood from the mouse, making Mistress KAWAII reel back her head in disgust. However, that did little to wipe the smirk off of Gonta's face. He kicked the door shut with one heel. "Search party won't be going anywhere today," he announced, chuckling maliciously. "And we'll be celebrating tonight till we're drunk off our butts." "Sure you would," Ryotaro said, rolling his eyes. "Care to explain how you and the gang managed to cripple such a fleet?" purred the Cat Queen. "It ain't too easy," Gonta explained. "With our best-known antics, we happened to make the engines break down, and the dynamos short-circuited, and the Marconi transmitters not working, and the propeller blades came free, and the coal bunkers set on fire." "You talk with a cunning mind," she said. Then she suddenly glared. "But!" Gonta froze. To him, it's a very big but. Fear showed in the squinting of his eyes. He already knew the consequences of even the slightest glimpse of incompetency. "Nobody got hurt, right?" she asked. "That's right," he said, quickly expressing his subservience. "Nobody got hurt or killed." "For what purpose do you show up in my room feeling so unnerved?" she demanded. "Do you think I'll praise you for such hesitation?" "You can't blame him, Queen," Mistress KAWAII said. "At least we've done it without giving ourselves a bad name." "That's just the start," purred the Cat Queen. "Rest assured that such bewilderment will bring some appropriate attention around people. I'm certain that the Coast Guard Kodono Station will be receiving complaints from its own search party, the one it has set up. If people convince these mishaps an act of sabotage, they'll bring in the police to investigate. But even that won't help get things moving. Therefore, you did what you were willing to do." "And if the people start to get suspicious under obvious circumstances?" Gonta asked. "Then let them," purred the Cat Queen. "People in Kodono have no idea on what awaits them in the days ahead." "The yokai?" "The yokai, as well as the one who brought us here." Mistress KAWAII nodded. "So that's it. Our work here is done." "For now, Fireball," Ryotaro said. "And rest assured there will be another party tonight, more rowdy and capricious than ever, even if it can be heard for miles. But not in here." "Not in here?" purred the Cat Queen. "If you need a bigger party, you might need a bigger room. There might be more yokai, aside from the Taniki gang." She thought for a moment, and her dangerous smirk grew wider. "Good idea," she cooed. "I know just the place." "Where?" Gonta asked. "We shall move the celebration to the Tivoli Ballroom," purred the Cat Queen. "It is located northeast of Main Street, down at Barton Road. Well, if you're the least bit involved." "Yeah!" he shouted. "That's what I'm talking about!" Then his mood changes. "But wait, does that mean I have to bring your friends from the underground here too? The Kitsune said so himself. More yokai aside from us." She inhales and growls. "Majikai naku." "Oh, hell!" he exclaimed. "I better get going. But I have to tell the rest where the ballroom is, so they can't wander all over the place trying to find it." Then he hurried off. "The Taniki gang, like a horde of hornets, will lead the rest to the ballroom, of course," Mistress KAWAII said. "Well, what will you do now, Queen?" "I'd be happy to answer that, darling," purred the Cat Queen. "Tonight, before we celebrate, I want them to know that there's an opportunity that awaits us." "Opportunity? What kind of opportunity?" "I meant every word to that wolf in the woods. Having the Taniki already interfere with the search party, I, the Cat Queen of the Underground, as the highest supporter of the Princess Kitty, shall support and help her by any means after she comes back. From this point on, we will stop at nothing for the one thing that'll mean everything. The Princess Kitty's existence into this city, and into this imperfect world. She deserves to be welcomed and accepted by everyone, for she is the one. Should they do not, well, maybe I should let them figure out on their own. Mistress KAWAII shot a determined look at her. Does that mean you're more prone to take appropriate actions with your cunning and venom against those who reject? The loveliest of what I can ever do, purred the Cat Queen. So much feline grace. You see that the people do. Of course, you wouldn't want to do it alone. Indeed. We shall arrive at the front of the Diwali hours after it closes. The yokai must know that she is the one. Yes, the one. Without the humans being there, we can have the ballroom all to ourselves. I will see you there. Here's to the Princess Kitty's existence. She walked out of the room without another word, just as the engineer came out of the bathroom and makes it to the door. Where do you think you're going? The Cat Queen demanded. He glared at her. Anywhere but here. If you don't let me, I'm going to go nuts. Your personal problems do not interest me. You're not going anywhere. Boss! There's no way I'm going to spend all day in this hotel, not after I saw you eat a beaten mouse! He turns and storms out. Darling, you know I eat 8 mice a day to stay healthy, she said. So full of fat and protein, there's no difficulty eating them. Rats, of course, if they're considered the main course. But he slams the door behind her. She can hear him say, I'm going out! See you tonight! Unfazed, she opened the basket next to the bed, letting Haruka and Mina go out. Mother wants the both of you to do something for me, she ordered her cats, hissing. You see if he comes back. And if he doesn't, the cats hiss as she opens the door for them to head out, before closing the door. She turned to find Ryotaro still present in the room. Without saying anything, she flops onto the bed, laughing giddily. Most feared in the underground, isn't she? He thought. Your cats, he said. I see that they are loyal to you, just about as ferocious and cunning and unpredictable as you are, Queen. Their fur black as midnight, their claws sharp as knives. Sometimes they're loyal enough to kill for me, whenever I decided not to get blood on my claws, she said. In Bomvaria, where the one has summoned me there to help, I have those two slaughter the enemy to pieces in the courtyard. Cunning indeed. Although you haven't mentioned anything about Bomvaria to me before. Just ask Ganta, and he'll tell you about it, after I told him the other day. So what about your cats? Would they help you out in making the girl's existence inevitable as well? You really think I can't do this by myself, darling? Because I promise you, I will be very unpredictable very fast. And you need to ask yourself, do I really want to put myself through all this? To make that girl inevitable? Take it from me, darling. I would. Then she laughs giddily again, tossing and turning onto the bed. She paused and looked at him, lowering her eyelids. And if she does feel welcomed here, then so do we. In fact, I'm looking forward for that moment. He can't help but smile, which gloats at this fact. I understand perfectly, Queen. It will be ordained. She got up and caressed his vulpine face with her claws. You just think, Ryotaro. Only her existence will determine on what shall become of normal life when they saw her wandering around the streets, while we remain careful in keeping a low profile, flawlessly careful. I do find what you say comforting, my queen, he said. The existence of one cat girl can be far, far prominent as our own. Yes, I understand you. I'm looking forward for that moment, too. She cooed, Ada, Ada. And to think I admire your know-how. When the one has come back, then the yokai will set things in motion. Dewa mata. She lightly pushed him away and watched him go. If desires were mice, I'd eat them all, she thought, as she turns on the radio and takes off her bathrobe, exposing a huge tuft of fur on her chest before heading back onto the bed. Oh, I'm really not good to competition, especially against his mistress of Vulpine Grace. To me, I find him as a friend of mine, but oh, how I adore him. And such a lovely body. Really, a lovely darling. Sure enough, what the Cat Queen expected to happen, happened. Locals at Morimo Harbor called the crippling of the search party an act of sabotage. Hours later, the police were called in to investigate, but so far, no evidence has been reported. Given under the circumstances, the search for the Maybell is now suspended this week. For those who are loved ones, they expect to never give up hope. Of course, that's what she wants, to have Princess Kitty help the crew survive and get them home herself. Northeast of Main Street, sandwiched between a hairdresser's and a paint shop, stood the Diwali Ballroom down at Barton Road. What's interesting about this place is because the architecture was influenced by the temples of Egypt. Even the entrance was guarded by statues of Bastet, the Egyptian goddess of cats, warfare, and fertility. The ballroom comprises a discriminating mix of Egyptian and Art Deco motifs set within an exotic and luxuriant decorative scheme. From the off-street entrance steps a small foyer decorated with ancient hieroglyphics, a raked floor, and deco-style marquetry paneling. The foyer leads directly into the ballroom, a large auditorium with frescoes on the ceiling depicting cats, complete with raised viewing dais, stage, proscenium, fixed banquettes, and a maple dance floor. The decorative scheme is kitsched and flamboyant, the effect created through red velour padded walls with gilt picture frame style panels and decorated pilasters, scallop-shaped lights, a red velour pelmet, and crystal chandeliers. The ballroom featured a bar on each side, running the length of the hall. The right-hand bar features booths with ruffles on the tops and tables with leather upholstery arranged similar to a railway carriage. The bar at the end of the room has a tiled front of arabesque interlaced patterns. Lighting is provided by exotic saucer-shaped lamps decorated with oriental patterns. The paneling motif established in the foyer is continued on various doors to the ladies' powder room and the gentlemen's cloakroom. Hours after closing time, the entirety of the ballroom was occupied this evening by the strange and the unusual, a full house. All around, a low murmur of conversation drifted and swirled like glimpses of smoke. More sophisticated, more private, more important. Low female laughter, the kind that seems to vibrate around the viscera. Males dressed in black or gray tailcoats, and females in black and white silk dresses. The bar is in full swing, and floating rounds of cocktails permeate the room until the air is alive with chatter and laughter with unreasonable subtlety. Some of the creatures played Renju, a game played with black and white stones on a board. Some engaged in conversation, striking up an acquaintanceship that will last throughout the night. The orchestra on the stage plays the yellow cocktail music, and the opera of voices pitches a key higher. Laughter is easier, minute by minute, spilled with licentiousness, tipped out at a cheerful word. The friends of the Cat Queen were there, especially her cats, the engineer, Ryotaro, and the Tanuki group. Her friends from the underground consists of the following: the Master of the Swans with his 2 black swans, Asuka, a geisha that was seen riding on a red-crowned crane, standing at nearly 3 meters high, the long neck bending downward to prevent the head from comically hitting a chandelier. Madame Nagai Kubi, or Akira Kubi whose neck can stretch to great lengths. Chorui, a kotengu that resembles a large bird of prey with minor human-like characteristics, a fine warrior who served others in the underground. Kawataro, a kappa that was constantly clumsy on land and reeks of fish, but the dish on his head must be full of water at all times. After nearly 30 minutes of inattentiveness and fine dining, the Cat Queen emerged from the stage. She was all dressed in black, a dark coat unbuttoned at the front, loose-sleeved with silken cuffs at the wrist. Over it, she wore a tight black waistcoat with white buttons underneath her black blouse. She was shod in black high-heeled boots over black tights, and on her hands were black gloves with the claws protruding out of them. She donned a black bowler with a red stripe and a red bow tie around her neck. With her hair short and smooth, instead of long and wild, yokai would hardly recognize her. She has her head held high and her back straight as a rod, leaving her bosom to stick out and making her blouse tight. In fact, her clothes were slightly small, her slender hand caressing the stand of a ring microphone. All around her, the expressions on the faces were admiring, and some were full of wonder as they spent the night. She signaled the orchestra to stop playing, and banged the end of her hickory cane on the floor, having the yokai turn their heads to her. A rich chuckle sounded behind the ring microphone, her voice loud and clear, confident and powerful, as it sailed out across the ballroom. A deep, sultry voice rumbled out of the chuckle. "How nice it is to see your smiling faces again. How I've missed you all from the underground. I mean, where would you be if I didn't bring you here? I can tell there's going to be some changes around this city, and it'll be a doozy. Is it not a magnificent thing that I, your Cat Queen of the underground, have ever known?" Chirui stepped forward and knelt down. "Surely, my queen," he said. "Why have you brought us here, Cat Queen?" Asuka demanded. "Oh, please tell these people, boss," the engineer stated. "They like to be deluded as you." Madame Nagai Kubi stretched her neck, having her face reach his. He immediately recoiled in disgust. "Guess nobody's heard of personal space, do they?" he groaned. "I believe that things don't get any more unusual to you all," purred the Cat Queen. "Wind the clock back hundreds of years. Whether you're in any shrine or temple, they respect you, give you novel offerings. But whenever you're in any village, they wouldn't welcome you with open arms. People see you as demons, kind of like me. To fit in, you all have to wear your cute little masks, so no one can see your faces. But right now, our way of life will forever change. Your little masks will no longer work on these people in the city. In fact, they are destined to be obsolete. A storm is gathering to you all, and when it breaks, it shall be echoing throughout the world, especially our own." "We know not what storm you speak of," Chorui said. "Then you all know not of the sudden appearance of the Catgo princess in this world? The one person who would establish such a change? As far as I know, the Princess Kitty of KAWAII Wonderland is truly unique, a superb wonder to all who believed, a central character that is destined to affect those around her, to leave a mark on such a world." She then orders her cats. "Would you kindly show all what she looks like?" she asked. Haruka and Minako, 4 feet tall and standing on their hind legs, immediately brings forth a large easel with a huge profile of the cat girl princess on it. The yokai walked closer and stared in awe.
"What is she like?"
Kawataro spoke up, with his mouth billowing out water.
"Can it tell us?"
"Such a finer specimen," purred the Cat Queen. "A finer specimen with a lust for goodness. The 8th wonder of the world." "And she's the reason why you assemble us all here because," Asuka said, "for 200 years, the citizens of their city knew that no astonishing thing has happened. not even questioning the natural order of things, purred the Cat Queen. How veritable. The Master of the Swans nudged his black swans forward. And to think that our master felt her presence, even though he didn't lay 2 eyes on her, the first swan said. How completely imperative, the second swan agreed. Of course it is, purred the Cat Queen. And where is she now? Madame Nagai-Kubi asked, stretching her neck to have her head face the Cat Queen. Out there at sea, on board the Maybelle, purred the Cat Queen. By now, the people on board would expect great things from her, very great. Although Stormfish batters their ship with no hope of rescue, although half are still alive, she is willing to help the crew get back home. But if she doesn't, she points at the Master of the Swans. I do hope you can do something about it. Stormfish, Madame Nagai-Kubi exclaimed. That's an interesting way to die. How bloody uncouth to hear you say that, the engineer said. Don't you all care that half of the crew are fathers or husbands? Tell me, purred the Cat Queen. What makes an innocent no longer innocent? You and your riddles that make no sense, the engineer growled. The Master of the Swans bowed his head. Our master is willing to help, Queen, the first swan said. That depends if the princess doesn't get them home first, the second swan said. Oh, yes, purred the Cat Queen. This is only the beginning. Nobody could have dreamed of what she would do a few days and weeks from now, and nobody would have believed it if they'd been told. Any one of you yokai will be forced to become corporeal to the public, to coexist with mankind, the things you will never be concerned about. If our own existence in this world before her defined the past, and her arrival to this world defined the present, it is what is to come that will define the future. It is written, as highest supporter, I'd be happy to make this cat girl inevitable to the city, and I alone am going to savor every minute of it. I've been completely interested in this girl for over a week now. You can possibly picture the spark on her eyes, the sweetness of her voice, the gracefulness of her extremities. I'm telling you that this city deserves a whole lot better with her being welcomed. For the great things she's willing to do, I get the feeling that she'll be remembered for the next 9,000 years. I want her to appreciate the beauty of what I'll do to her. I want her to give in to the many wonders around her during her travels. I want her to know that I, the Cat Queen of the Underground, the great mother of disorder and consternation of the earth, am the catalyst of her own existence in the city, and our ascendance while cursing the thoughts of precision and order. She raised her arms up. Who is willing to become a part of this? Please speak now. Immediately, the voices rang out all at once. I am! We're with you, Cat Queen! The Tanuki gang rang out. Yes! Kitty! Support Kitty! She'll bring us joy! She is the one! Act now! But what will happen if this Princess Kitty is rejected by everyone? Choruri asked. Shall we interfere through divine retaliation? Oh, yes, Madame Nagai-Kubi said. Shall we make them look upon us in fear? See to it that you will all be rewarded for what role you play to help her, purred the Cat Queen. This world shall become her home, this world of life and good and fertility and imperfection. I'm not inclined to exaggerate. The Princess Kitty will be the last creature you would expect to earn that accolade. She pulls out her Tanagashima pistol aiming at the chandelier. "Those who dare reject the Princess Kitty will suffer the immediate consequences by our hands!" she shouted as she fires the pistol. Instantly, the chandelier exploded with sparks and bits of glass as the entirety came down, purposely onto the engineer. He found himself screaming in pain and rage, while Haruka and Minako laugh and giggle at his misfortune. "Boss!" he screamed while in pain. "I'm going to slice off your tail with a bleeding tonto!" "So begins our solemn prospect!" the Cat Queen screamed, a deadly resolve inside her as her voice became strong and confident as she swung her arm out to proudly display the entirety of this moment. "We shall give extreme praise! Our efforts will not be in vain! The Princess Kitty shall be welcomed! Long may she reign!" The yokai screamed out. "Long may she reign! The Princess Kitty!" Then, as the crowd erupted, the orchestra swung loudly into Lyman's "Shake That Thing." Everyone but the engineer danced uproariously all over the floor, on the bar tables, and even around the destroyed chandelier. The Cat Queen went over and picks up the chandelier off the old man with ease, before tossing it aside. But he's too weak to move. He could just lie there, muttering curses on his boss. She snaps her fingers to her cats, and they come to her. She points at him and orders them, "Take him back to the hotel, and make sure he's comfortable." They pick him up and haul him out of the ballroom, just as Ryotaro approached her. "Such feline grace you have expressed tonight, Queen," he said. "Admirable, but uncanny. Never has it been more beautiful." "Than your mistress?" she asked. He shook his head. "Never say such things, Queen." He turned to find Gonta approaching him, laughing drunkenly with a glass in his hand. "Cat Queen! Watashi no sai! Nobody puts on a show like you!" "Your pleasantries are most appreciated, but please refrain from using them ever again," she said. Gonta lurched to Ryotaro. "Oh, come on!" Gonta barked. "I know it's not a red light district, nor is it a brothel, but it's a place for a party nonetheless. Dance with us, and we shall find you a fox of grave honor." "Oh, don't hurt me," Gonta slurred. "I didn't mean to make you upset." "What should you want me to do? The cakewalk? The Charleston? The shag?" "Probably the foxtrot," Gonta hiccuped, laughing. He steps back, but he slips and stumbles onto a trolley cart, resulting in a server rebuking him. "Perhaps you have a drop of wisdom for a creature who deserves to be welcomed," purred the Cat Queen. "I'm surrounded by lunatics," Ryotaro murmured. "Talk about an understatement. It's because of the booze they drank." "Queen, I should have stayed back home with my mistress," he snapped. "I'd be happy to dance with you, Ryotaro," she said. "Loveliest of all, you'll be telling your mistress all about it. Come to think of it, I'm really looking forward to what she might say. Won't she ever be envious? However, I'm not that good into competition." "Indeed you're not," Ryotaro said. "You meant what you said about this cat girl." "Soon, everyone in Kodono will know that this cat girl is the one," purred the Cat Queen. "It is written." "It is written." "The most admirable of all, that Kodono is going to know how much of her existence is going to affect us all. It's already happening as we talk. I can already feel my true self within me struggle to burst through my human facade." "You of all the yokai are willing to show no hesitation. More's the pity for Kodono." Then the Cat Queen emits a low purr as she placed both hands on his shoulders and pressed her body against his. He was unable to look away from the sultry gaze in her yellow eyes, her long tail slinking gracefully, slowly around, even slower. "Come dance with me, my sweet," she cooed, her voice with smoothness. "We will celebrate until the dawn." And the celebration went on, more rowdy and capricious than ever, even if it can be heard for miles, until Princess Kitty's return with the Maybell. All around the city, especially inside the Hotel Valerian, a round of parties and dinners thrown by supernatural creatures.